It's the show where Hawaii's newsmakers come to talk and to take your questions live. From the nation's capital to Honolulu Hale, from the state legislature to the fifth floor. We bring the experts to you and ask them what you want to know. Spotlight Hawaii with Yanji Denise and Ryan Pillay-Suji on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser.
This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Long's Drugs.
Well, aloha, and thanks for tuning in on this wet and overcast Friday here in Hawaii. I'm Ryan Pillay-Suji, joined by Yanji Denise, and this is Spotlight Hawaii on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. This morning, we're heading back over to the Hawaii state capitol and getting to know someone who will play an important role standing by the side of the governor for the next 4 years.
That's right. She also has an office on the fifth floor. We want to welcome First Lady Jaime Green to Spotlight Hawaii this morning. Our first time having you on the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Aloha.
So I want to start with the basics, which is how has it been getting settled in? I know that you moved to Washington Place and you've had several events there. Tell us about what the last few months have been like.
Very, very busy is really the way to describe it. Yes, we moved from our condo over to Washington Place in the residence, and we're actually still in boxes. There's a lot of boxes that we still have around the house. And in the midst of all of that, we have had several events with Japanese dignitaries who have come over, and also from our Australian Consul General, dignitaries from the mainland United States, from our federal government. So it's been a crazy ride so far.
If you can maybe explain the role of the First Lady. This is a significant role, obviously standing alongside your husband, the governor, to support him. But there's a lot of things that are also asked of the First Lady. If you can just describe what this role entails and maybe a few things that people might not realize about being First Lady.
Sure. I think, first of all, the way I had looked at it was the opportunity. And I was just so excited about being able to be involved in programs and issues and policies. And then, of course, there's, the role of supporting the governor. And in that way, it's like being part of the transition, being part of putting the governor's office together, and all of that, and welcoming dignitaries and doing events and being a part of the history of Washington Place. All of that was just such a great opportunity. And then you also have the responsibilities. And for a lot of people, I'm not sure if you realize, it's a volunteer position. First Lady is not really, an officially paid position in the government. And so I have so much respect for all of the First Ladies that have come before me and that are even in other states. I've met wonderful First Ladies at the governor's, at the NGA that we were just at in Washington, D.C. And I even had the opportunity to meet First Lady Joe Biden. And, the role, although it is something that we say, oh, they can make whatever they want of it. It comes with a lot of responsibilities and expectations that we didn't necessarily sign up for or, cultivate. So it's exciting. There's a lot of opportunity, but also a lot of expectation and responsibility that comes with it.
Well, we know that you have a lot of work experience that you will bring to this role. Just for folks who don't know, you are an Iolani School graduate and also a lawyer, of course. And so tell us about, how your work history and your sort of personal priorities are going to play into what you are going to be advocating for over the next 4 years.
So my heart really has been in child advocacy. That's the work that I did as an attorney. I worked in family law, and then I worked in nonprofit policy work. And then I also had worked at the Capitol at the legislature for Senator Chun Oakland, who was the chair of Human Services at that time. And that's actually how Josh and I had met. So I was always in children's issues and policies really is at the heart of what I want to do. And so what I see working on obviously involves helping and supporting programs for children and for families. I think specifically, I want to help. I'm working with the Hawaii Food Bank because there's something that I'm not sure a lot of people know is that Hawaii has the second highest rate of food insecurity among our children. And to me, that is just unacceptable. And so that's definitely something that I'm going to take on and work with the Hawaii Food Bank and whoever else wants to help reduce that, because that's just, for us to have the second highest rate is just unbelievable to me. I also think, for children and family issues, it's not really just one thing. It's really, I think it's time to look at a holistic approach, because it's not, you don't look at a child's situation and say, oh, they're acting out. They need mental health therapy or they need this or that in education. It's really a variety of social services, and it also includes the families too, and it includes cultural disparities and opportunities that, or lack of opportunities that there are. So there's a lot of things that I think that I'm going to work on with under the umbrella of children issues.
Of course, one of the roles that you also play is just being a support to your husband. And they often say, don't bring work home to couples that are dealing with relationships. It's hard to do that in your situation when your husband is the governor. I'm wondering, just in these first few months and looking forward, I mean, how often are you folks speaking about some of the issues that the state is dealing with? Are you someone that is a sounding board for him? Are you giving him advice? Talk a little bit about the dynamics that occur between you and your husband, specifically for some of the biggest issues that the state is facing.
That's interesting because it's really nonstop. There is no such thing as don't bring it home, because we live in the governor's residence. And that, it's a place where it's honestly constant. And I think one of the differences, and I'm not 100% sure how other relationships are, especially for between the governors and the first ladies. But for Josh and I, we have really been a partnership throughout, his political career. And so in terms of being a sounding board, I'm a sounding board for all of the issues that come up, even though I say that, I'm more interested in children and family issues, whatever it is, whenever there's an emergency. I mean, when things come up, whether it's, the volcano erupting, or when it was, unfortunately, when the helicopter went down for the Hawaii Life Flight, and he had to deal with that emergency, and really caring about, how our neighbor island families were going to be able to get health services when there wasn't when there wasn't any way to transport them over here, and getting the National Guard involved. All of those kinds of things we talk about. So it's not, and it's funny because it's not just a matter of him coming home and talking about it. We do have an office here on the 5th floor. So we're just constantly in contact and talking about the issues that are coming up, whatever they may be.
You referenced meeting the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, and also, interfacing with some other governors' wives when you were up in D.C. I'm interested to know if you have had any interactions with the former First Lady, Mrs. Ige, or any of those who came before her. I mean, there's no playbook for this, but I'm sure there's got to be some sisterly advice, if you will, on how to handle the role. Have you had any of those conversations?
Not necessarily with the former First Lady, Mrs. Ige. However, Mrs. Waihe'e and Dr. Caraway were very gracious in, offering advice and wanting to meet up at some point, which I haven't been able to yet. But Mrs. Ariyoshi also, was like, let's get together. And so I did have the opportunity to meet with her already. And she, to me, is really like a quintessential First Lady. She's absolutely amazing. I didn't really have a chance to get to know her until recently. And her words of, the stories that she has, the history that she has both at Washington Place, She talked about running around, and, her kids actually grew up in Washington Place. And so managing that as a mother, but then also welcoming the public into her, into her home, really, and sharing that and being a part of all of the different communities. And, she had a lot of dignitary dinners. It's just, the breadth of her knowledge and experience was amazing. And the thing that she told me that really stuck with me, especially, as we complain, or not as we, because it wasn't her complaining, it was me saying, like, all of these responsibilities and it's so busy on top of everything else. And she said, it is such an honor to serve the people of Hawaii. And I just absolutely agree with her. And for me, that really centers how I want to be as a First Lady, to remember that it's an honor, and it's a privilege. And to be able to take care of Washington Place and be a part of its history is something very special.
And also just talking a little bit about Yanji's earlier question about being at NGA, I think a lot of people don't realize that this is a conference, of course, that brings together all the governors from across the country and their spouses. And there's actually a track that's set aside for the spouses to meet together. There's different breakouts and opportunities. So if you can discuss some of the things that you learned on your track with the NGA, and then also if you can talk a little bit about what it was like at the state dinner at the White House.
So it was an amazing experience. One of the things that first struck me is that amongst all of the governors that were there, I didn't know who was a Democrat and who was a Republican, which really was a breath of fresh air in terms of politics, right? We just think of it as so divisive, especially for me. I think of the mainland politics when it comes to Democrat and Republican as just, a very harsh environment. But amongst the governors and the First Ladies, everyone's kind of, we just want to take care of our states. And we're dealing with the same issues. We're dealing with mental health care. We're dealing with our children and youth. We're dealing with how to make lives better for all of the people in our states. And so that was something that really struck me. In terms of my opportunity to meet with different First Ladies, I mean, the issues that they're taking on, again, regardless of whether or not they are in a red state or a blue state, it's the same kind of social services issues that that are at the heart of what I want to accomplish too. So I'm just amazed. And again, these women who just are, finding themselves and finding the issues that they're passionate about, and the work that they do and the amount of time and effort that they're putting into this it was just really amazing to me. And one story is that Dr. Joe Biden, she actually was not feeling well. She was under the weather. And so she wasn't able to make the luncheon that is hosted at the White House. And although we're all disappointed, we obviously wanted her to get better. The next day, there was a service project that she was leading, and she showed up. We didn't think that she was going to show up because, she wasn't feeling well. And she was there, and she was so gracious. And it reminded me of, these are responsibilities that these women take seriously, and the work that they do. And the service project we did was actually to a literacy project, so that we packed bags that included books as well as a stuffed animal for service families for the children whose parents were going to be deployed, so that they would be able to read together as a family. So they both had books. So it's just such a wonderful experience that we were able to be a part of. And then when it came to the dinner reception at the White House, that was absolutely amazing, because it was the first time that I had been to a dinner like that at the White House. And it was so special because I don't know how many people went, but, we're tourists. We're taking pictures of all of the president pictures, and they really know how to do it at the White House. The flower arrangements were wonderful. The food was amazing. And just being able to sit with all of these other governors and cabinet members and the president and the vice president, their spouses, it was really a wonderful experience. And it just seemed like the camaraderie there, people wanting to work together to do what's best for the country, was great. And then Josh, it was his birthday on Saturday. And so he got this special surprise of being sung happy birthday to by all of, everyone that was there. So it really was just the most incredible experience for us in DC.
Wow, that sounds incredible. I can't imagine being sung happy birthday at the White House. That's
It was
pretty
great.
awesome. I want to ask you, on the campaign trail, your husband spoke a lot about you and the significance of you taking on this role as the first person, the first First Lady of Native Hawaiian descent. And, I know that you recently joined Instagram, and in one of your first, I think it might have been the first Instagram post, you talked about a Native Hawaiian Cultural Center that you're hoping to develop. Can you tell us about that and how you bring your heritage to this role as well?
Right. So first of all, it's funny. Some people could just say that, oh, he's just saying, she's the first Native Hawaiian First Lady for votes, right? To just say, but it means so much more than that. And being in this role, I feel the sense that it's a responsibility, it's an opportunity, it's something that, to actually be able to represent our people and the voices and to make it a priority, I think, right? It's something that not all leaders prioritize. And in the same way, when you have gone through what we have as a people. And I think that more than just paying lip service to like, oh, Native Hawaiian culture, what does it do for our state, or what does it do for tourism or for the economy? It's really about doing right by the Indigenous people that really bring the soul and the values and the culture that make Hawaii what it is. And, and I say that not just as a Native Hawaiian woman, but also as someone who is of mixed race, right? Like I don't want to just say that, oh, I represent just Native Hawaiians. I mean, I'm Japanese, I'm Chinese, I'm Haole. I have relatives that are Korean, that are, African American. I mean, we come from all races and religions. And really, it's about honoring our culture and honoring our values. And I think in terms of the Native Hawaiian Cultural Center, to me, it's just such a shame that we don't have that. I think we take it for granted that Hawaii, that Native Hawaiian culture is kind of around. But the fact that we don't have a place that, like the Okinawan Culture Center or the Japanese Culture Center, I mean, it just hasn't been prioritized in the same way. And what I see our role as being is really to help support the community in prioritizing it and bringing those voices to the table. So it's not something where I feel like the state has to develop this center. I think it really is about supporting community efforts to develop this center. So same like in Maui, the Kumuhula came together to develop a cultural center. I think in the same way on Oahu, a lot of the Kumuhula, a lot of the, the different clubs and civic clubs and organizations all see this need for a space. And what I want is for the state to really recognize the need for that and to support it in whatever way it can. So there are bills going through, there are different community groups that are gathering. And if, we can offer space, we can offer help, we can offer resources, and bringing all of that together to make it happen. That's what I want to be a part of.
We always like bringing in comments from those viewing. We want to bring in one comment here from your husband saying, loving this real communication from Jaime. Your husband supporting you this morning, watching you, maybe nearby, in the office nearby. But I also want to go into, of course, with this role, all the responsibility that you've been discussing thus far. There is criticism that comes in, and you are standing by side your husband, who will not always make everyone happy. And I'm wanting to get your take on what it's like to be in that capacity where there is sometimes those disagreements, those people who are not fans of your husband. And you, of course, your family experienced that with protesters outside of your home during COVID-19. What is that like in dealing with some of the pushback that you might get, and how you continue to support your family during this time when there is sometimes that negativity that is being thrown at you?
I think something that we focus on, and Josh focuses on in particular, is that we're here to care about the people. We're not, this isn't just some political gamesmanship to, I don't know, get resources for one thing or another. It's really about caring and helping our state, in the ways that it needs to, and in ways that I don't think that people necessarily had a voice to do that before. He comes from a medical background. I come from a social services background, and we're just trying to make life better for people. And I think, there's obviously disagreement on maybe the details of how to do that. And yet I hope that what we can bring is really connection, and having people who want to help come together and just make things better for everyone. I think if we focus on the positive and focus on the ways that we can work together, that's how we move forward, and not just on power and control and, I can make this happen or that happen. I think that if we're really focusing on people, and, I know he's focusing on affordability and on building houses and homelessness. I mean, those are things that all of us here in Hawaii, we see the homeless and how the situations have gotten worse, and we want to, do better for that. And same with housing and affordability. We're all in the same boat. We all see the struggles. We all have to pay for bread and for milk and eggs, and see how expensive everything is, and whether or not, we can afford, whether it's rent or afford to put a down payment on a house, and so these are all things that we, as a community, need to just rise above the pettiness and rise above where, the small details of where we disagree. Why can't we just all take a step back and look at the big picture and where we want to go, and focus on how we can all get there together?
I'm interested in something that might be causing a little disagreement at home, and that is the discussion of the family dog. I know that this is something that was discussed on the campaign trail. The children were promised a dog if and when you move to Washington Place. So what's the status of that?
So that's very funny, because the disagreement is really between my husband and the rest of us. Yes, our children love the idea of a dog because we love dogs, but really it's whose responsibility is it, right? And whose responsibility? It's me. And I don't want that responsibility added on top of all the other responsibilities I have. But really, there's all kinds of things that go into that discussion. Our children said they absolutely want to be on the record that they don't want to walk the dog. They don't want to take care of the dog. They're realistic enough to know that, because I told them everyone has to chip in. If we all get a dog, we're in this together. So they want to be on the record saying that they didn't really want it. And then my husband, who grew up with big dogs, and he had a Rhodesian, when I met him, he had a Rhodesian Ridgeback, which was big. So it was, it weighed more than I weighed. And I just can't handle a big dog. Plus, I need a hypoallergenic dog. So we have a lot of discussion going on there. It's still to be determined when that will actually happen.
Okay, well, we'll definitely have to keep us posted on that and any developments that happen there. Before we head out, we're almost running out of time. But I did just want to get also your sense of what you want these next 4 years to be for your office. I mean, is there anything that you're prioritizing? You mentioned a lot of things this morning, of things that you want to accomplish. But how are you, of course, going to prioritize that? How are you going to find time to do all that, knowing that this is a term and you only have this opportunity for a window of time? What are some of the key things that you are really going to focus on maybe in this next year and then moving forward down the line?
I'm definitely going to focus on working with the food bank. I definitely want to focus on getting resources for programs that deal with at-risk youth and children just making sure, I think for a long time, we just haven't been putting in the resources that we need to really take care of our children and the social services and mental health issues that they need. And I want to make sure that that's prioritized. In terms of Native Hawaiian issues, I want to prioritize bringing the voices, bringing people to the table, making a difference, helping DHHL find its way. We got a lot of money. I want to be able to spend that in the right way. We want to get people off the list. We want to help all Native Hawaiians, honestly. There's FestPac coming. That's going to be a really huge event next year that will bring people across the Pacific to Hawaii. And it's indigenous peoples, it's different countries, it's being able to showcase what Hawaii and our, the Native Hawaiian culture has to offer. So that's definitely going to be a priority. Washington Place is a priority for me. Being able to reopen it, being able to, look at the plants and look at the rooms and, just being able to rejuvenate it and see how, like Queen Liliuokalani, the plants and the things that she wanted to do there, how do I make that happen? And I know it's like, people say, oh, what's your focus or what platform do you have? And usually it's a list of one or two, and I just can't pick one or two. And I know we have a limited amount of time, and yet all of these things are priorities and they all need to be worked on at the same time. So busy.
Well, we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule for us. We do hope to hear back from you again. There's a lot of comments, people writing in that they, saying that they love your energy and they really appreciate what you're saying today, particularly around Native Hawaiian issues. So thank you so much for being here this morning. And we hope to catch up with you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Aloha.
Well, great to hear from her. And interesting, you really get a sense of her, she's very authentic in the way that she relates to you, very unguarded, if you will, in her comments, and just really honest about how she's feeling. She's got an office right across the hall from the governor. She is taking this volunteer position very seriously, treating it like a full-time job. And it really is whatever the person in that office makes of it. You heard a laundry list of what she wants to take on in her role, and then also being a support to her husband, being a sounding board. It sounds like, Ryan, to your question, that the work does not stay at the office.
Yeah, and it definitely is something that she will be around to help support her husband in, similar to what we've seen other governors rely on their wives and their spouses for, to be that sounding board. We heard also about her passion for some of the things that she will be advocating for, with regards to children safety, as well as to Native Hawaiian issues. Her talking about the importance of this Native Hawaiian Center that she would like to see established and open here to help provide support and a voice for the Native Hawaiian community, being the first Native Hawaiian First Lady to assume this role here in the state of Hawaii. And also about their experiences traveling to Washington, D.C., meeting with the other governors. You heard there that refreshing comment about saying there was no political lines really during that time with the meeting of the governors from across the country, that she felt a sense of camaraderie and that people were genuinely there to really help their states and, of course, help the country as a whole. Also hearing that the governor had a special rendition of Happy Birthday sung to him at the White House, which is pretty rare. And we got an update about the family dog, saying that she doesn't know that she wants to take on yet another responsibility. But the governor saying here that I will walk this dog. So the governor,
I love that.
The governor really going out of the limb there, saying that he will make this dog a priority, I guess, in their family, and will walk the dog.
Well, they did live in a condo for some time when he was lieutenant governor. And of course, he was commuting to the Big Island to work in the Kohala Community Hospital up there. So probably didn't have time or space for a dog. Now that Washington Place is there and they have the room and the yard there, that she does not sound like she wants to take it on. And a Rhodesian Ridgeback, that's an enormous dog for those who are not familiar. So interesting to see them going, that back and forth there. We'll see how it shakes out with the dog. But great great to hear from her. And then really also important to know, her passion for childhood issues and the idea that Hawaii is, among the highest when it comes to food insecurity for young children, and just how difficult that is, and how that's something that she wants to change. So we will be keeping up with her. On Monday, we're actually taking the day off, taking the holiday, I hope, along with many of you, but we will be back on Wednesday. We're going to be focusing on one of the governor's initiatives, that is the green fee. He wants to try to leverage some kind of an environmental fee on people who are coming to visit our islands. How he's going to do that. There are two folks, advocates who support this issue, environmental activists, if you will, who have been really lobbying on this. We want to hear from them about why they think this is so important. And we hope you join us right back here on Wednesday at 10:30.
Have a great weekend. Stay dry. Aloha.
This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Long's Drugs.